Hey folks, this is Kenny from Eagle Eye Shooting and welcome to the Eagle's Nest. What you see in front of you here is some fired cases out of my Savage 110 rifle in 6.5 Creedmoor. And in this video, we're going to be talking about case volume and the effects on your reloads. This is primarily a VR for Tim over at PC Bullet Empire. We're going to talk about and show and demonstrate what happens when you have cases that have eternally less volume than normal. And this could be kind of aimed towards precision reloading, but we're going to separate this and actually talk about practical and acceptable accuracy for your applied distance as well. So on these cases, like I said, these are fire formed, but I wanted to see if you guys could actually tell which ones are neck turned. Well, it's kind of hard to tell, right? Well, before we get into that, we're going to talk about the three main things I consider to be important and what affects your velocity numbers and standard deviation. Number one, we're going to call this neck tension and bullet release. So B release, right? Two, I'm going to talk about headspace and volume. And of course, number three is going to be your reloading components. So those are the three things I'm going to consider to be your main primary reasons why your standard deviations and extreme spread numbers differ. All right, so we're going to talk about neck tension. So neck tension deals with how the bullet is released down your barrel. Now this is primarily why I use a neck turner, and in some instances, some folks gain benefit off a neck turn piece of brass compared to a just a regular standard piece of brass. Now, one of the main things you want to know is on your fired form cases, does your bullet easily drop into the case? Like so. Now, this is a, like I said, fire form piece of brass. And obviously, this one has enough gap that hits the chamber wall and allows the bullet to freely release. Now let's find one that wasn't neck turned. You'll see a difference. That one was neck turned. Of course, I'm getting all the ones that are neck turned. Here's one. Let's see. Yep. See how that one has drag? This was not a neck turned piece of brass. That extra tension causes a little bit more pressure, and this will cause a little bit more standard deviation. Your pressures to kind of increase and give you higher velocities. So that one's not neck turn. That one is. That one isn't. So these two pieces of brass, like I said, are not neck turn. You can see the bullet is not, I got to pretty much force this bullet down in order to get into the case. So that is not a neck turn piece of brass, and more than likely it's causing higher pressures and therefore higher velocity. All right, so we know that these pieces of brass are neck turn. These aren't. I'll separate in a pile which ones are neck turn and which ones are not. This is neck turn brass. This is non-neck turn brass. So Tim brings up the fact of weight sorting your brass, and I agree with doing that method. For me, as a precision loader that is shooting 1,000 yards more than often, I usually volume sort my brass. But the fact is, you can essentially get two pieces of brass that weigh essentially the same. So let's go with this one here. That's 160. That one is 160.3. So separate these two. See if I can find one that's roughly the same. 159.2, 161.2. I mean, you can see that these are definitely, here's 160.3. So let's see. That one's 160.3. This one is 160.3. So these two pieces of brass weigh exactly the same, but as you can see, I got quite a bit of deviation. That's 161. and the brass is in the brass compared with each other. That's 160.9, 158 or 159.8. So a couple grains to 3 grains heavier or lighter compared to each other. The point is that you could get 2 pieces of brass that essentially weigh essentially the same, but the internal volume of the brass can affect your deviation numbers and your velocities. You know, for precision reloaders, you want to get down to the single digits. For me, I kind of get more, I guess, in depth, and I volume sort. And what I'm using is these you know, primer pocket plugs from 21st Century. That's a large rifle. Here is a small rifle. So we're going to do a little test today. We know that these 2 pieces of brass essentially weigh each other. I'm not going to volume sort, and what we're going to do is resize these pieces of brass. One of them, like I said, these are fire formed. Like I said, these are fire formed pieces of brass. It's fire formed case head measurement using the comparator is 1.598. So that's usually what mine is, 1.598. See here, 1.598. It's very important to get one of these tools if you guys are looking into precision load development. So we're going to take that number and say 1.598, right? And what I like to do for my precision load development is I bump my shoulders back about 1/1000 to 5/10,000 of an inch. So we're going to set up the reading body die on one of these pieces of brass. So like I mentioned, let's mark one blue. Okay, so we'll mark this case head right here blue. This is the one that we're going to undersize the case volume. Basically, I'm going to bump back the shoulders quite a bit and show you guys what it does. So let's set up the reading body die on the new neck press that I got. Use a little bit of case lube. Another thing to mention is actually case lube, since it is a viscous or basically a liquid style lube. Liquid does not compress. So if you do get excess case lube onto your shoulder, that's going to affect your case measurement. So you want to do just very, very light on your body die, or folding sizing die, just enough to get it to ease into the die. But it's a good tip. Don't put too much lube. Imperial sizing wax and unique case lube seem to be kind of the top of the line style. I am interested to see if you guys know of any style lube that is a dry style lube other than graphite that I could use for resizing, because I kind of want to weed away from anything that's kind of a liquid style. Anyways, we're going to resize this piece of brass here, and we'll see what the measurement is. All right, there we go. Let's see here, 1.597. So I got 1/1000 bumped back on the shoulder. So this one is my precision, the way I do my precision hand loading. And on this die, and on this piece of brass, we're actually going to undersize this and bump back the shoulder quite a bit. Loosen this lock ring. Of course, once you set this thing, once you set this thing up, it's pretty much in there. It won't move. It'll loosen the lock ring quite a bit. Okay. All right. So let's give this thing about a quarter twist of a turn. All right. Lock it down. Here's that piece of brass, and we're going to size this thing. Let's see what the measurement is. All right. Felt resistance there. And you can see there 1.5945. So this thing is bumped back roughly 0.006 on your headspace. All right. Now for my loads, I like to use the Lee collet die. I do have a Reading bushing S die coming in, so hopefully I'll test that pretty soon. But to get my neck tension back, we're just going to Squeeze the neck back to where it was. All right, there you go. These two pieces of brass. So we're going to prime these, load them up with Hodgdon 4350. We're going to load these up with Hodgdon 4350 and seat the bullets. Gotta get the right shell holder, of course. All right. Number 2 shell holder for 6.5 Creedmoor, not a number 4. All right. There you go, that's one. That's 2, all right. So, now that those 2 pieces of brass are prepped, we know that this is both neck turn brass and they have adequate, I guess, release where it gives enough room to release the bullet and not cause any drag. So, check. Headspace volume, item number 2. We know that the blue piece of brass is 6 thousandths bumped back more compared to the other one. So that one is a difference, right? So we're just do difference on that one. Now, reloading components, we know that we're gonna load these up with 42.6 grains of Hodgdon 4350 on the same powder charge, same bullet. So I'll give that one a check. All right, so far the only thing we changed is headspace volume. Like I said, 42.6 grains Hodgdon 4350, the unicorn powder of precision reloading. I'm gonna do this old school. And it's quickly trickling it up. Okay. I don't know if you can see that. 42.6 grains, right? All right. I'm gonna put that into the blue case. Okay. 42.6 grains, right? Okay. Load that up. And voila, there's the 2 cases. So, last step, of course, is to seat the bullet. And what I like using is, these are 2 cases. So no sleight of hand here, you can see. One of them is the blue case. I like to use the RCBS gold medal match die. And I seat these bullets roughly 8 thousandths off the lands. So that one's completed. One really cool thing about this die is that it's really simple. Throw the bullet in there, and with the mech press, you get roughly 0 run out. Pretty cool. All right. These 2 cartridges are ready to go, so let's head out to the range and see what these do with the chronograph. All right, so we're at the 100-yard mark. Got the chronograph set up and 1 target downrange. And what I did is I loaded up 2 bullets. These would be basically my little sighters. Make sure I'm back to 0. And these are my precision loads. And the one we loaded, pretty much same exact load as those 2. And of course, this is the one that has the headspace slightly shorter. All right, so basically what I'll be doing is I'll shoot one and then go up to the chronograph, show you guys. I don't have my my phone holder, so let me shoot the first 2 that are just sighters. I don't know if you see that. All right. All right. 26 or 2768. Get the second one here. That way we can warm up the barrels well, eliminate that factor. You can see there 2770 2770. You can see there that you know, that's the 2 FPS deviation there. So cold bore shots are right in line, and I usually get around 1 to 1.6 standard deviation on this load. All right. Okay, so here's the one we just loaded up. And I'm going to aim at the top left box. So it'll be a different group. $27.57. All right, so here is the blue case that we marked. That's 5 thousandths headspace. Wow, okay. All right. And the chrono number, check that out, 2798. So that's that. You can tell there that more headspace will increase your velocity. So that right there is roughly a 20 FPS deviation. Now, as far as the groups, I wasn't really like barreling down, but these were the basically Fowler shots or warm-up shots. Aimed 1 MOA off target, 1 MOA up, and that was that shot. That was basically bump size back 1 thousandths, and then here's the one that was 5 thousandths. So you can see the group almost the same. I mean, you know, of course, with the higher velocity, the vertical dispersion went up a little bit. So let's get back to the bench. Let's show on quick load also what it does. All right, so we're back. Got the 2 cider cases, basically to make sure I'm zeroed, and the 2 we just reloaded. All right. So let's see what the case overall length is as far as headspace. Let me knock these primers out real quick. Bring you guys over here. All right. I like to use the universal decapping die, so throw that in there real quick. There we go. All right. Let's see what the case overall length is. See if we're back to 1.598. Yep. Well, this one's saying 1.5975, which is pretty close. And the one that we resized a little further down, 1.5975. So that could be the the calipers or whatever, but that's fairly close back to Fireform case head measurements. and leave these two cases out the way. They should weigh roughly the same. So this one is 160.3 and 160.3. So as you can see here on the field in the testing, we definitely had a increase in velocity with the case that was basically resized of the headspace at 6,000ths bumped back. So excessive headspace 6,000ths, and we'll show that on quick load as well. So here is quick load, and here's my cartridge built 6.5 Creedmoor. This is 140 grain AMAX, but I basically built the bullet profile to match the 1.383 bullet length, yada yada. 42.6 grains of Hajdon 4350, and you can see there that very close to my muzzle velocity. It's saying here 2751. So my case volume is for sure 52.3 grains, and I've done this with multiple cases. So we know that when we bump the shoulders back, we affect this case volume, right? So we know currently this is calculating 2751. If we were to bump the shoulder back 6,000ths, that will give us roughly a case volume of 51.75. That's what I'm going to name it. Let's see what that does as far as pressures and velocity. Now it jumped up to 2766. So according to this as well on quick load, case volume does make a huge difference. For instance, we bumped it back even further, went down to 51.55, and you can see there even went up further. So it's 2771, and you can see my pressures are pretty much right at cartridge max, listed at SAMI spec 63,000 psi. So this is where I pretty much emphasize headspace is a critical factor, especially when you're in a hot powder and near the max charge of your case. Bumping your shoulders back could definitely get you in a danger zone, and according to this program, this shows us as well. So one of the main factors, of course, that change your velocity is definitely case volume, and as far as your cartridge length as well. So two main things on your reloading technique. Definitely watch how much case lube you're putting in. Definitely watch how much case lube you're using when you're resizing your brass. Definitely get yourself a comparator to know what your headspace is. And your overall length, I definitely recommend getting a bullet comparator insert as well. So again, like I said, if I was to make this 2800, according to the book, case overall length, you'll see that they, muzzle velocity also increases. This one's saying 2799, and it's in the red telling me that I'm above SAMI spec pressure. So something to think about. So going back to the three notes, neck tension, bullet release. These two bullets, of course, like I said, were neck turn, and you can see there, these are both dropping the bullets real easy. Okay? So that means I have adequate neck tension, as well as the necks are sized enough to where when it expands in the chamber, it allows the bullet to freely release without causing any drag and excessive pressures. Now, Tim brought up a really good thing, which I wanted to kind of hit on. Actually, we'll be doing a separate video on it, but it's basically talking about acceptable accuracy. When does velocity really come into play? If you're shooting at 300 yards to 500 yards, velocity, as far as being a 20 FPS increase or lower, really is not going to be emphasized at that distance. Where you're going to see the standard deviation extreme spread numbers to come into play is when you're shooting around 1,000 yards, 800 yards, whatnot. That's when the velocities start really showing your vertical dispersion. Your points of impact will change at that distance. Around 500 yards or closer, you're not going to see it as much. With the same load, assuming that everything is reloaded as uniform as possible. But what I would say is make yourself a goal. What is your target going to be? I mean, we all want small groups, right? You see a target, you do your load development, you see something like this. That's not adequate, right? We all want groups like this, right? 1 hole, 3-shot groups, 5-shot groups. It's not necessarily what you're looking for, especially if you're not at those long distances. For me, I would say, as far as my goal, I want to hit a 10-inch plate, you know, adequately every single time at, let's say, 500 yards, right? So my goal is to hit 10-inch plate, 500 yards, knowing my dope. You know, that's my range I got. You don't need a 300 thousandths inch group. You don't need a 1/2 inch group. Quite frankly, you could get away with a 1.25 inch group, so to say, and still be able to hit your target and have fun. So you could definitely step up your game and, you know, really get down to precision. And say, for instance, you only got 500 yards to shoot. Well, now your goal is to shoot a 4-inch plate at 500 yards, right? So 4-inch, 500 yards. And that's where you're gonna wanna get sub-MOA accuracy out of your reloads and be under, you know, 1 inch. So to me, I would say make a goal, stick with that goal, and don't sweat the details. In fact, what I've found most often on F-class shooters, a lot of F-class shooters shoot heavy barreled rifles. And talking with some of the folks there, a lot of them just buy brand new brass. They don't do any of the stuff that I'm doing. They just buy brand new brass, and they don't do any of the crazy stuff I'm doing with neck turning and all that. They load it up, they find their max pressure, and then they back it off 1/2 grain to 1 grain, and that's their load. You know, there's a little bit of fine tuning as far as your overall length and, you know, bullet jump, of course, but they don't do much. You know, they're shooting 600 yards F-class match, maybe a 4-inch plate at 200 yards or whatnot. And honestly, with a heavy barrel, you're not going to see much, I'd say, point of impact changes working with your load that way. Now, for me, I got 42.6 grains is the most accurate load out of my rifle. Occasionally, I mess around with the load. I bump it up to a 1.5 grains just to get the velocity. My group size doesn't really change much. You know, instead of being a 200,000 inch group, I'm around roughly 500 thousandths, so half an inch, which is definitely acceptable because my target at long distance is this more than likely. You know, big old heavy IPSC target. Ah, man, this thing weighs a ton. Or more recently, it's a 10-inch plate. And quite frankly, past recent videos, zombie head. So that's what I really got. I mean, honestly, I would say there's a lot to it, precision load development. But quite frankly, what's your goal? That's what I say. And Tim Robinson definitely hit that on the head, definitely nailed that. If you're shooting 200 yards, I wouldn't say sweat the details, you know, neck turning, all that. I would say pay attention to your reloading technique, buy quality brass. You know, Starline is quality brass. It eliminates a lot of variations and factors on your reloading and frustration, quite frankly. You buy good quality components, Starline, Peterson, Lapua brass, good bullets, Berger, Hornady ELDs, load them up, and don't worry about it. You can definitely have fun more at the range, knowing that your reloads will hit, you know, your goal, 10-inch plate, 4-inch plate, whatever it is at 500, you know, 1,000 yards, 200 yards. You definitely know and have a sense of satisfaction knowing that your reloads are capable of hitting that target whenever you have your dope set up. So that's what I got for now. I hope this really helps out. You know, any questions, comments, feedback, of course, comment below, let me know. Tim, thanks a lot for putting that video out. And folks, thanks for joining. Like I said, these are just some of the main 3 factors on precision that really make a big difference. There's a lot more to it, of course. This is just a small demonstration, and I hope you guys find this really helpful, seeing this actually in person, live on the range out there. Well, folks, stick around, stay tuned. Got a lot more coming, of course, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.